Hello and welcome back. I'm moving on now to our hopefully just one video of part 3. So for our part 3 video, what I'd like to do is to discuss how to talk about these details, and especially in your body paragraphs when you're writing an essay, with adjectives, okay? So what I wanted to do today is to start basically by looking at what the word adjective means. So adjectives are description words, how we can describe things. So we can talk about things like color, shape, how many. So usually we talk about, we describe nouns, okay? So what I've done here is I've chosen 3 pictures. And what I'd like you to do is I would like you to describe these pictures out loud using adjectives or 형용사s. So what I'd like to go for is, how about we try 3 adjectives, 3 description words for each picture. So you can pause the video if you wish, but it would be really good simply for you to just say out loud what you think would be good description words for each of these pictures. So go! Picture number 1. Now remember, I'm giving you 10 seconds, so if you need extra time, pause the video and I think you should try for 5 adjectives, or 3 to 5 adjectives. Or you can give a sentence or a few sentences about the particular picture. That would be fantastic. So we're going to move on now to picture number 2. Go. Alright, and picture number 3. Go. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. So again, if you need some extra time, pause the video. Now, what I've noticed is with classes that I have with students is that often students give the simplest answer possible. So who said for picture number 1, cat? This is probably the simplest word you could think of for that picture. And also it's really boring. So what I'm hoping for is that you think about at least some grammar. So how about we start with a sentence, and especially the grammar is important. Do you know what grammar is? Grammar basically is the parts of language that doesn't change. But grammar usually students don't really like to study. They find it difficult and tedious. You know, it's difficult and a little bit boring. So the easiest way for you to help your students with their grammar is for you to use it. So let's move on to slide 29 and take a look at these. So how about, did anybody answer something like it's cute, or white, or blue-eyed? And even better than that is also to package information in the noun you choose. So instead of cat, actually this is a very small little cat, a young cat. So even better than cat, we can use kitten, because this is also a really good word to explain more clearly what it is we're looking at. Description, right? Number 2, how about it's raw? Raw means uncooked. Or Gwangyang. This is from Gwangyang. If you take a look on the picture, I don't know if you can see the small writing there. It says Gwangyang bulgogi. Perhaps you could add if it's beef or if it's pork bulgogi. And where is it located? It's on a grill. So these are all giving you much more information just by adding a few words. And this is our focus for this week. What about number 3? You could have given his name if you wish. But remember that we're looking for the English style positioning of his name. So he's amazing, he's a superstar. What sport does he play? He's a soccer player, or you could choose football as well. It depends. Football is European. It's a European word for soccer. In North America, we have a different game called football. So we, again, where you are is important, and the thinking about the different meanings that that word can have in different places is also important. It's called context. And of course, we could use his name if you wish. So what I'm trying to point out to you is that the words that we choose can convey a message, they can give a message to the viewer, and this includes how you feel about your topic. So if I go, it's a cute white blue-eyed kitten, you can feel I like this cute little animal. It's raw, it's delicious, raw Gwangyang beef bulgogi on a grill. Again, it's a positive message. So what we say helps to give people, to produce in them an understanding of our feeling about that particular item. Okay, so moving on now to what I think is one of the most important slides, and this is slide 30. Now, this is really important for you to understand that you are awesome, you are fantastic. And it's really important for you to understand that your English vocabulary is amazing. You have an amazing vocabulary. So what I want to point out to you is you need to show people you have that. So how to do this is to use it. Use that language. And if you've forgotten, that's no problem. Review, look again, look in the dictionary and go, oh, what's that word again? Adjectives describe things. So what I want you to be using is to use adjectives and use nouns that have information packed into that one word. Because essentially, the more adjectives you use, the more details you provide to your readers or listeners, depending if you're writing or if you're presenting. And this increases the interest that people will have in your work. For example, if you think about books that you have read before, that you found were interesting, why? Think about why. And I would bet a lot of money, and I don't like to gamble, I don't gamble, that one of the reasons is because of the description words, because of the adjectives that they use to help you understand what their points are. So, did you get the joke of the taco? Talk about awesome. Talk about. Awesome. So anyways, you're great and you rock and your vocabularies are fantastic, but you need to show me. Because remember, I'm not a Korean student. I was not educated at the, I was not educated elementary, middle, or high school level in Korea. So you need to show me what it is that you have learned. So I'm moving on now to slide 31. Slide 31 basically is how do we make adjectives? Because you don't have to memorize every single adjective to be able to use adjectives effectively. So we can also create them. And in this case, I want you to be thinking about possible ways to make new words, okay? Because for example, YouTube is a new trend. So we can use words like YouTubers. That did not exist, even 5 years ago. Well, maybe 5 years ago. But it's a new word. Language is being created. Create some language. You can make any language you want. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be used or that it will become used. So how do we make adjectives? How do we make these description words? First point is we add suffixes to nouns and verbs. So I'm guessing that your next question will be, suffix? What's a suffix? So what I want to do is I would like to talk about what suffixes are, just to start with. And the starting point for suffixes that I would like to point out is that suffix is 2 syllables, but when we talk about many of them, we add es, and this is true of most words that end with an es, we add an extra syllable. So glasses, glass, glasses, suffix, suffixes. Church, churches. Dish, dishes, okay? So the es tends to be that we add one more syllable. So suffixes are essentially endings of words that we add on. So an ending is a suffix. So what essentially we're doing is we're changing a verb or a noun into an adjective, a describing word, a description word. So one example that I've got here is communicate, a verb. So to communicate is for you to produce language and hopefully to provide a meaning to the person you're speaking to or writing to. But if we want to describe that writing or the action of what we were doing, then it would be communicative, a communicative activity, okay? So I've also got here just as a little note, because I tend to use E period G period, and E period G period is an abbreviation, a short form for example, okay? So if I use it again, please remember it means for example. So moving on to slide 33, and I'm going to do, with the next few slides essentially is I want to introduce some common adjective suffixes to you so that even if you don't remember the exact word, you can probably figure out what the word is you want to use to describe some thing, some noun, some object. So the first one is adding able or ibble. So in the case of, understandable, something is understandable, it means that you're able to understand it. So I think if we reverse it and you think about able as the word separate from understandable, then we can see what the purpose is. So something that's understandable means it's something that you are able to understand or easy to understand. Something that's readable means it's easy to read or you're able to read it. Incredible means that it's unbelievable. Pigs flying, that's incredible. So the idea is that simply by adding this ending to the word, we can create a description of something. So of course we can use this in many different ways, and I'm certain, vocabulary-wise, that you're comfortable with this. But these are the 7 most common adjective suffixes, so even if you're not sure about where it fits, you can still try it. The point about this is you're providing more details, you're giving more interest to whomever is reading your work or listening to you as you present. So number 2 is the AL ending, O, mathematical, functional, influential, chemical. So again, this is another very common suffix ending, which we can use to create adjectives. Moving on to slide 34, we have numbers 3, 4, and 5. So number 3 is adding full to the end of the word. So for example, something that is full of beauty is beautiful, okay? Now, this is not always an exact opposite. Full of beauty is beautiful. Often we can say something that is full of harm would be harmful, right? Something that can hurt you. Poison is harmful. Number 4, we can use the opposite sometimes. For example, harmless, okay? But you cannot use it every single time. So you do need to get comfortable and think about how to use these words and to make sure that you're comfortable with them, but do use them. Try. So something that's full of beauty is beautiful. Helpful, harmful, there are a wide variety of words when we use full, but the idea is it is full of that thing, okay? Again, keep in mind that some of these adjectives have a positive meaning. So beautiful, of course, full of beauty is very positive. Helpful, what do you think? Is it positive or negative? Positive, very good. What about harmful? As I just discussed, it's a negative. So remember that if you want to give a positive meaning, we should use positive words. If we want to give a negative meaning, I hate something, something is awful, then we would use something that conveys that negative meaning, like awful, okay? Number 4, the suffix less tends to mean no. There is none of that thing. So one example is when you have no sleeves, it would be sleeveless, okay? Or fearless means you have no fear, which is the opposite of fearful, full of fear. Careless What's the opposite? Careful. Careless means you don't care, right? You're not careful about something. Hairless, you cannot say hairful, but hairless means you have no hair, or for example, maybe someone's arm is hairless, or a baby's face is hairless. Number 5 is the suffix ic. So generally speaking, it means having a quality, okay, that type of quality. So something that is something like an artist would do, a quality of an artist. For example, this stairwell I think is very artistic. I love this stairwell. Something that is terrific, okay, wonderful, like that. Moving on now to slide 35. So these are our final two, the final most common suffixes that are used. Something ous, so examples are dangerous, gorgeous, adventurous, means that you have these qualities. So if you're a person who loves adventure, it means you are adventurous. If you see something that can be a very big danger to something, it is dangerous. The same with actions that you do. Anyways, moving on. So moving on to our final one is the suffix ive. So when we add this, so for example, to invent, if someone likes to invent things, it means they are inventive. Okay, they like to invent things. Attractive is someone who has the quality of attracting things to them. So attractive can be a synonym for good looking or handsome or pretty, because remember that handsome is used for men and pretty is used for women, but we can use attractive or good looking for men or women. Anyways, point being is these are positives. Well, inventive and attractive. So moving on to slide 36, number 8 is an additional one. So I think this is the easiest, and this is the easiest way for you to make new words, is simply we just take a noun or a verb and we add y, okay? So we've got some examples here, which I've chosen. So we've got wind, and we add a y, we get windy. So it is windy today. Smell, we add a y, negative, oh, it's smelly. Chill, when we add a y, it becomes chilly. Today is a little bit chilly. Scare, when we add the y, what happens? It's scary. We describe it. Moving on, if we talk about something that is a trend, but we want to describe what that trend is like, we can talk about trendy. So example is, wide leg jeans nowadays are quite trendy. Laze is the verb, to laze about. And when we add that y, we can now describe, oh, someone is lazy, or I feel lazy. Mess, okay, so mess is not dirt. Dirt is something that's not clean. A mess is basically, it's clean, but you've got things in places they shouldn't be, so it's disorganized. So an example might be, and you can be honest, when you go home, do you put your jacket and your clothes and your bag away neatly, or do you throw them on your chair? If you throw them on your chair, that is messy. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're dirty, it just means they're not where they're supposed to be. So what I did here is, if you look at this picture, I love this picture of the little girl who's putting makeup on her dad. The dad's very good natured, but you can see that obviously she's not very good at putting makeup on, so the makeup she's putting on her dad is messy. Next is pick. So pick is to choose, okay? And in this case, if you look at the top picture of the little boy hiding his eyes from the vegetables, this boy is picky. He's a picky eater, which means that he doesn't want to eat that, and he doesn't want to eat that, he doesn't want to eat that. So I'm hoping that you aren't too picky about eating, but this is a great word, and you can create these words, nouns or verbs plus y. Another one is funny. So if you think something is fun and someone makes you laugh, they are funny. A description. And last, of course, is hair. So if we have hair and we add a Y, we can now describe something as hairy. And I don't know if you've noticed lately, but lately I've noticed hairy caterpillars around. So don't touch hairy caterpillars, because often hairy caterpillars have, there's a little bit of poison, or you can get very itchy if you touch them. So please don't touch hairy caterpillars. Moving on now to slide 37. So what I've done here is I've given you some really basic examples of how we can use these. So I've got noun plus, actually this is my verb plus Y. So laze. You want to laze about. So laze plus Y gives us lazy. So if we take a look at this picture, we can say, this dog is lazy, she is lazy, or we can say she is a lazy dog. Okay? So in the case of our adjectives, the same in Korean is that we put the adjective before the noun, but remember that in English we count those nouns. So please remember, a lazy dog. Moving on to now to slide 38. We've got a horror movie called Halloween. And since today is Halloween, happy Halloween. I'm wondering, did you watch a horror movie? Maybe you're going to watch a horror movie tonight. So what about Halloween, this movie? If you like horror movies, it's an old one, but it's a very good one. So scare, there's our verb, and we add the Y, so we describe it as scary. Okay? So you can say this movie, the noun, is scary, or we can describe it as this is a scary movie, and we talk about it as a separate point. I like scary movies, maybe? I don't. I'm terrible at watching horror movies. I can't sleep if I watch horror movies, but I'm not sure. Lots of people love horror. Moving on. So there are also some additional adjectives that we can use which can describe how we feel inside. Okay? So one example is if we move to slide 39, I feel, I am momo ed. So we take a verb and we add the ed to it. So one example is if I watch the Halloween movie, I'm scared. I'm scared and I can't sleep. What's something that you do that you feel excited by? I'm excited by these lovely, beautiful, beautiful days. They are gorgeous, and I'm hoping that you're getting outside and walking around and enjoying the sunshine and looking at all the trees changing color, because it's so beautiful, it's so pretty. This is one of my favorite times of the year, autumn in Gwangju. Bored, perhaps, if you're in class, or you're maybe if you didn't sleep well the night before, or if you are a night owl and you stayed up late and then you have to watch a long class, maybe this class as well. Hopefully not. Maybe you feel bored. I hope not, but anyway. Annoyed. There's 2 a.m. and you have a mosquito flying past your ear. So you get up and you're annoyed. I feel annoyed. You turn on the light. No mosquito. Turn off the light, go back to bed. Close your eyes, lie down. And then you're really annoyed. Anyways, that's how you feel inside, is the verb plus ed, but they're great words, great description words. Moving on to slide 40, of course, we have the same point with the ing. Okay, so we take our verb plus the ing, and this is when we want to describe something outside of us. So I want to talk about, if I went to Everland, what was Everland like? It was exciting. I loved it. It was so exciting. Or perhaps you went to a museum and you didn't enjoy the museum. You thought it was boring. So we're talking about something outside. If you want to describe that mosquito who kept you awake at 2 in the morning and you couldn't find and then when you tried to sleep again, it kept buzzing past your ear, you can say, that mosquito, it was annoying. Because it's outside of you, you're talking about outside. So remember, inside ed, outside ing. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I'd like to practice. Let's see what you think, see how you feel about it. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to try, in this first part, to create, to make these words, and I've given you a variety of nouns and a variety of verbs, into adjectives. Now again, the same point that I was making last week is there is not one single answer. Okay, there are many possible answers in some cases, not all. There are some that are probably better than others, but try. So please pause the video now and take a look at these nouns and verbs and see if you can make them into adjectives. Go! Okay, I'm going to continue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some suggestions. Of course, again, if you want to, and I suggest it's a good idea, take the time, pause the video, go back and take a look and see if you can figure out some good adjectives, some good description words. If you find it hard, why don't you apply it to a noun? So, for example, an accident is a noun, but what happens when you meet with somebody just on the street? You're going to the store and, oh, there's my friend. Then how would we describe that type of meeting? Then we would say it is an accidental meeting. Okay, so we describe that meeting and we give so much more information when we include these adjectives with our nouns. So this is what I'm encouraging you to do. So anyways, I've given you some possible answers here. So an accidental meeting. So I'm going to use these with nouns so that you can see perhaps how you could use them. Dangerous. What's dangerous? Shark diving. Shark diving, in my opinion, is dangerous. And the same with bungee jumping. What about starry? Starry skies. You know, when there are many, many stars in the sky. Be careful if we have the consonant ending, because in this case we need to have two R's for the starry sky. Perhaps you know the Vincent van Gogh painting, which is really beautiful, lovely, lovely painting called Starry Night. There's also a famous song called American Pie, and in it he starts the song with Starry, Starry Night. Experimental. So experimental describes something that you're just starting to try out, basically. So perhaps, maybe some of you have tried to make your own videos and post them on YouTube. So they might be experimental videos. Or perhaps you've been experimenting in the kitchen and you have an experimental cake. That sounds a little dangerous. Anyways, moving on. So science, we can talk about something that is scientific, or someone who is older, who is an elder. Elderly refers to senior citizens, so people who are 65 years old and above. So elderly tends to denote that they're weak, a little bit weaker, and maybe gray hair. Maybe we would say like Silver Town, something like that in Korean. So moving on to the verbs. Verbs, when we change the verbs to adjectives, we can talk about something that is sensitive. So for example, maybe creams that you use. You might want to use a face cream for sensitive skin. Or a person who's really careful about things and who does things in a very practical way is sensible. Comforted and comforting. So perhaps I was comforted by my friend when I felt sad, or what is comforting to you? Maybe a nice hot cup of tea is comforting, or hot chocolate sometimes can be very comforting. Comfortable is another good description word. And again, we can have these, there's a variety of options that you have here for these words. So another example, exhausted. You feel exhausted, or something is exhausting. Exhaustible, an exhaustible resource means that it is finite. It will come to an end. Enjoyed, enjoying, enjoyable. What do you think is enjoyable? Maybe sitting with your friends, and as some of you talked about, going out with your friends for dinner is enjoyable. Going out with your mom and dad for dinner is enjoyable. Helpful, some children are very helpful. Helpless would be a description of, for example, a newborn baby is helpless because they can't help themselves. But if you left a newborn baby, it would die. So that means it's helpless. It can't do anything to help itself. And we have ideas like playful. So I'm sure you've seen playful dolphins. Lots of kids are very playful. It tends to be a childhood thing. People or kids are very playful, usually. All right, so moving on now. I'm moving on to slide 43. So for slide 43, what I want to do is to, again, to encourage you to try making some adjectives. So this is another exercise. So what I'd like you to do is in number 1, choose the adjectives from each of the following groups of words. So number 1, we have inventive, invent, and invented. Number 2, we have curiosity, curious, and curiosive. It's not a word. There's your hint. And number 3, we've got proliferate, prolific, and proud. So what I'd like you to do is take 10 seconds and see if you can figure out which of these could be adjectives. Go. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is move on to number 2 and give you the same exercise essentially, but in this case we're going to make adjectives from these nouns. So we've got smell, chill, and width. So can you make some adjectives from these? Go. So once again, of course, I'm not going to leave the video with a wide blank space because there's no need for it. You have the pause button, so please take your time, pause the video, and think about these before we move on to slide 44 with the answers. Now again, of course, these are possible answers. There is no 100% this is the only answer. So what I'd like you to do is take a look at number 1. So in number 1, the possible answers for between inventive, invent, and invented. Inventive is a person who likes to invent things. Okay, so Einstein was inventive. Thomas Edison was inventive. Invented can also be used to describe as an adjective. Generally, though, it's used as a past tense verb. For B, okay, our second one, we have curiosity, curious, and curiosive. Curiosive is not a word, but curious is a description of someone who is very interested in what's going on around them. Are you a curious person? I don't know, I hope so. C, we have proliferate, prolific, and proud. So we can describe someone as prolific, and we can also describe someone as being proud. Number 2, I chose smelly, chilly, and wide. So what's smelly? Chungukchang is smelly. Today is chilly, it's a little bit cold. And the road outside the window, which I'm sure you can hear the traffic from, is quite wide. So we're going to move on now to moving on to slide 45. So slide 45, again, I'm going to be moving in using these same exercises to try to get you to be thinking about adjectives and using them more. So in number 3, I'd like you to make some new adjectives with these verbs. Go! Now again, of course, pause the video, take your time. For number 4, I would like you to make some adjectives from the following verbs as well. Some, of course, there's not always one answer only. There are a variety of possibilities, so I'm hoping that you don't think that there is only one answer possible. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to some possible answers. So I'm looking at slide 46. So from interest, we can get interested, or he is interested, as an example. He's interested in, and usually when we use the ed form, there's a preposition after, like in, on, by, like that. So interested is always with in. I'm interested in cooking. I'm interested in lots of different books. I'm interested in what you have to say in your assignments. Interesting, remember, is something when we're describing something that's outside of us. So, what's interesting? I think the leaves changing color is very interesting. I think the hairy caterpillar is very interesting. I think it's interesting learning about what you're doing in your interviews as well. Be, amaze, again, we can do the ed and the ing as adjectives, and again with annoyed and annoying, same. So for number 4, again, these are possible answers. Escaped or escaping, improved or improving, damaged and damaging. So again, you can see all the different forms that we can have for these different suffixes, right, your different endings. So moving on now to slide 47, what I'd like you to do is have a look, okay? So this is one of my examples. So when we describe pictures, or when we describe something, we can do it in a variety of ways. So in this case, I've used 3 sentences, and when we're describing the appearance of something, we tend to use these 3 verb forms. So he is means factual, right? So the man in the picture, I love this picture, I love you, Jasak, or Jasak you. The man in the picture is factual. He's tall, slim, and funny looking. So remember, you've got those 3 adjectives there. Tall, comma, slim, comma, and last one, funny looking. The second one I chose is has. So when we use the have form, it tends to imply that it's changeable. So he has short black hair. Okay, so we're describing his hair, but he could go to the shop and change it if he wanted to. And he has white sunglasses, which again he could change. He could go and get a purple pair, or just get a pair of regular sunglasses. So again, though, we're using these descriptions to give more information. And he is wearing, right now, in this picture, he's wearing a bright yellow suit and running shoes. So we can see that these are great words to give much more information if I just said the man is nice. Do you understand my point? I'm hoping you do. Anyway, so I'm going to move on now to your assignments. So the week 2 assignment 2 is going to be to describe these 3 pictures. Now, what you can do is you can choose to write this in a few sentences. So I'm going to say 3 maximum. So choose your, what I'd like you to do is write about each of these pictures, and what I'd like you to do is choose 5 adjectives or more to write about. But you can write about them in 1, 2, or 3 sentences. It's up to you. So we've got our first picture of the puppy. Number 2, our second picture of a boy band. And number 3, another beautiful landscape picture. So it's up to you how you wish to describe them, but do your best to use 5 or more adjectives per picture, so for each picture. But I suggest, you can use, 2 or 3 sentences per picture if you wish. Moving on to our final slide. Our final slide is your final week 11 assignment. We are not doing the spectrum scans this week. What assignment 3 is about is your faves. My faves, my favorites. So what I'd like you to do is I've given you a choice of 5 topics here. Please choose 2 topics from these 5 and write 2 separate paragraphs about them. So you have to choose 3 different details for each of these paragraphs and lots of adjectives. Please use lots of fantastic adjectives. Use those synonyms. Do not repeat words. So you can choose from these 5 topics. So remember, choose 2. Describe your favorite music, band, or song. So remember, the or implies choose 1. Describe a favorite person. This could be a family member, it could be someone that you remember from maybe your favorite teacher at school, in elementary school, it could be anybody that you wish. It could be a character from a book as well if you wish. But you're going to describe the person. Remember, those adjectives are your most important focus for this week. Number 3 is to describe your favorite YouTuber or your favorite YouTube channel. You could also describe your favorite video as well. Describe your favorite food, number 4. So remember, especially for food, it's really, really important for you to choose to describe it in as much detail as possible. And finally, you can choose a restaurant. So remember to introduce what the restaurant is called, where it is, and give me some details about your favorite restaurant. So please choose 2 of those topics and give your 3 details, choose your 3 details to describe in them. And use lots of fantastic adjectives. Of course, please, please, please use synonyms. Don't repeat words. I would accept a word repeated twice, but that is all. So do your best. There are no spectrum scans once again this week, so don't be sad. I know you're really sad there aren't any, but anyways, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And also for your week 11 assignment, please, please, please take note of the final assignment bans. So I've told you 2 things that I will not allow anymore. The first thing is no more transition words first, second, third. Okay? And the second thing is please do not include a question in your paragraph. Okay? I'm off. Goodbye. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.